You've likely heard the story of Lucifer, the fallen angel. According to Christian legend, Lucifer was the most senior and most beautiful angel in God's heavenly court. He wanted to be more powerful than God and rebelled along with some other corrupted angels. After an ensuing heavenly war, Lucifer and other angels were banished from heaven and descended all the way down to hell. Lucifer, now a fallen angel, became the devil. His fellow fallen angels became demons. Okay, with me so far? Good. The story you've just heard is not in the Bible. Well, at least not in the way it's often told. The real origin of Lucifer is a lot more interesting. It's actually one of misinformation, conflation, and one very curious mistranslation. Let me explain. Before we get into wars in heaven, fallen angels and hellfire, let's start with his name, Lucifer. It's just one of many names used for the devil, like Satan and the beast, and those names are used quite a lot of times in the Bible, but only once is the name Lucifer ever mentioned, and that's in the Old Testament's Book of Isaiah. In chapter 14 verse 12 of the book, the prophet Isaiah says this: "How you are fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning! How you are cut down to the ground, you who weakened the nations." Even though the name Lucifer is mentioned, this taunting remark is actually directed towards the arrogant king of Babylon, whose kingdom had just been destroyed. Isaiah is basically teasing him for it. So, "How you fallen, O Lucifer, son of the morning," kind of just means, "King of Babylon, oh look how the mighty have fallen." But why did Isaiah need to call him Lucifer? What's Satan got to do with any of this? Well, you might say, Lucifer was ungraciously cast down from heaven as well. So, likening the king of Babylon to Lucifer is actually a pretty good comparison here. And yes, you would be right. But the thing is, if you examine the text in its original language, Isaiah was never really making this comparison in the first place. When we read the same text in its original language, Biblical Hebrew, Isaiah's taunt actually sounds a bit like this: Ek napalta mishamayim helel ben shachar, nigdata la'aretz cha'olesh al goyim. Did you hear me say the word Lucifer? No. Nowhere does the real Isaiah actually say this name. Instead of being called Lucifer, the king of Babylon is called Helel ben Shachar, literally a shining one, son of morning. In Hebrew, a shining one, son of morning, does not refer to Satan or the devil, but a planet, the planet Venus, otherwise known as the morning star. Besides the moon, Venus is the brightest body in the night sky, and because it's so bright, it's often the first star that can be seen in the evening, and the last star you can see when the sun comes up. Hence the name, the morning star, or in Hebrew, shining one, son of morning, Helel ben Shachar. So back to Isaiah's taunt about the morning star, and it all begins to make sense if applied to the planet Venus. By describing the king of Babylon as, O shining one, son of morning, Isaiah is likening the king's epic fall from grace to the movement of the morning star, which every morning appears to fall from the sky into the underworld. In the Sumerian religions of ancient Iraq, the goddess Inanna was associated with the planet Venus. There are several hymns of praise to Inanna in her role as the goddess of the planet, but a particularly famous hymn, Inanna's Descent to the Underworld, describes how, unlike any other deity, Inanna is able to fall from heaven, descend into the netherworld, and rise back the next day, just like the planet Venus does every dusk and dawn. We've established that Isaiah is actually talking about the movements of the morning star, the planet Venus. But how on earth did it become Lucifer? Well, once the Bible was translated to Latin by early Christians, they came across Isaiah 14:12 and translated the Hebrew word for morning star into their own word for morning star, Lucifer. Lucifer is a Latin word for morning star, with the word literally translating to light bringer. In Greco-Roman myth, the morning star was often personified and considered a god, and in some myths, considered to be the son of Aurora, the dawn. How did the morning star, Lucifer, aka Venus, turn so evil, and where do the fallen angels come in? To thank for that, you have the Book of Enoch. It's an apocryphal biblical text written around 300 to 200 BCE, and it didn't quite make it into the final cut of the Bible, but was incredibly popular in Second Temple Judaism. In the Book of Enoch, there's a chapter called the Book of Watchers. And in this chapter, we have the Watchers, who were dispatched to Earth to watch over humanity. But they did a terrible, terrible job, and they soon began to lust for human women. and, led by their leader Samyaza, all started to defect from God's command and began to procreate among human women. The offspring are called the Nephilim, or giants, who pillaged the earth and endangered humanity. Samyaza and his fallen angel cronies also began to teach the humans certain forbidden arts, like weaponry, cosmetics, mirrors, sorceries, and other hidden secrets. Meanwhile, God's looking down in anger and disbelief, so allows a great flood to rid the earth of the corrupted humankind and those Nephilim, but first warning Noah to build his ark, as described in the Book of Genesis. Afterwards, he gets his loyal angels to punish the fallen watchers, including their evil leader, Samyaza. Remember, none of this is actually canon for mainstream Christianity or Judaism. It's labelled as an apocryphal book. In today's terms, that's the equivalent of being a sort of Bible fan fiction. But at the time, people loved the Book of Enoch so much that it began to influence contemporary religious ideas. Even in the New Testament Book of Jude, the Book of Enoch is directly quoted. Around the time of Enoch's circulation, Jews and early Christians rummaged through the Old Testament to see if they'd missed any hidden secrets, and they just so happened to stumble on a little verse in the book of Isaiah. Instead of seeing it as a reference to the planet Venus as originally intended, they found a hidden reference to that fallen angel Samyaza as seen in the Book of Enoch. And when early Christians read Isaiah in Latin, they came to understand Lucifer not as Lightbringer, but as a name for a fallen angel. And so, Lucifer, the name for the fallen angel, finally stuck, and was added to a growing number of names used for the devil, such as Satan, the beast, Beelzebub, and so on. Now each one of those names have their own fascinating origins that I'd love to cover in a future video, but for now, I'll leave it at that.